What is going on, you guys? Tarun. I'm back with another video, and today I want to tell you a little story that I think will help a lot of you guys make a lot more money. It's something that I took 5 years to learn. Um, just a little bit about me. I've been making six figures since my sophomore year in college. I graduated a couple years back. I have a marketing company, Ready Media, and what I want to talk about is deciding who to sell to and who your avatar is going to be in your business, because it can make you a lot of money. You can work a lot less hours. You can have a way better product/service. And I'm going to give you a bunch of evidence. But first, I want to tell you a little story about me. Um, the original version of Ready Media, we were a generalist marketing company. We would work with anybody who was willing to pay us. And so I worked with law firms. I worked with contractors. I worked with physical therapy places. I worked with med spas. I worked with bars. I worked with restaurants. I worked with chiropractors. I worked with landscaping businesses. I worked with boating companies. It's all under the sun. And we probably worked with like 50, 60 businesses. We've done political campaigns for people running for Congress. And we were doing about 50K a month. And I was doing about 15 to 20 grand a month in profit. But we were working all over the place. I was constantly putting out fires. When you're a jack of all trade, master of none, you cannot charge a premium price. Every project is different. You know, what you do for a chiropractor does not translate to a bar, right? So we were always constantly having to figure out new things and what's the next campaign and what's the next video and what's the next ad and what's the next offer. And it was just so stressful. There was no systems. It wasn't a business that we could scale. It was not a business that was repeatable, because it was really just my thinking ability, diluted a bunch of employees that couldn't be systematized. The results couldn't be replicated consistently without me being involved. And a lot of you might feel what I'm saying, but at the beginning of this year, 2025, I actually had two business partners. I gave them the entire business, basically. I said, hey, like, you guys can keep this 30 grand in revenue. And I just want the one general contractor that we had at the time, because he lived close to my parents, and I really like working in the construction industry. I understand the business well. And so I lived with four roommates at the time in Austin, and I went from being the one who made the most money to the least money basically overnight. What ended up happening was, at the end of this year, we're doing about $25,000 in revenue, and I'm the only employee. I work about 5 hours a day. Obviously, all I do is eat, sleep, and breathe business. But in terms of actual operation and day to day, I don't work that much, and I'm making more in profit. And the results I get my clients are way better. And so it's been insane. On average, we're adding $4 million a year to the companies we work with. And I have way less clients, and I make just as much money in profit. And this is going to be the way that I get to $10 million a year. And so anyway, I spent 5 years basically trying to run up a mountain with weight on my back, and it just wasn't sustainable. Like, it felt like every month we would make more money or more revenue, but I would have to hire more employees. I would have to constantly be putting out fires. Every meeting that we'd have with clients, it was like, it could go good, it could be bad. Like, you just never know. It was constant stress. And all of this to say, I had to take two steps back and say, who do I get the best results for, and only serve them. I'm going to say that again. I had to look and really see, which clients did I spend the least amount of time with? I understood the business extremely well. I knew how to grow the business that I enjoyed working with. And that just happened to be remodelers and home builders. Okay. That was what I decided to niche into. And people say riches are in the niches. I would agree. Okay. There's a couple reasons. When you niche down, meaning you become very selective of the customers that you sell, whether you sell a product, service, it doesn't really matter. There's a lot of things that you get, a lot of benefits, okay? And I have a couple of them listed out. But one is that the process can be repeatable, right? So it's the same offers. It's the same advertising strategy. It's the same types of marketing. It's the same types of content they need. It's the same types of website. It's the same types of follow-up. It's the same sales process. All of that is the same. So the cost for me to deliver the same service to 100 contractors is very little, because if I have something working with one contractor, I can duplicate it in another market for a very low cost to me, which makes it extremely high profit. If everything is different, then you have to constantly hire more people. You have to add bodies. It doesn't scale well. You might grow revenue a lot. That's where you see a lot of people talk about revenue, but nobody wants to talk about profit. And so that's one benefit. The second benefit is when something works for one client, you can give it out to all your clients. So like, let's just say one of my clients is struggling with, they're getting a bunch of leads, they're getting a bunch of business, but they can't close. I can just say, hey, here's one of my contractors in a different market, in a different state that has an exceptional close rate. Why don't you spend an hour talking to them, see how they go? Here's what their sales process looks like. And instantly I add tons of value that I wouldn't be able to do if I serviced everybody. Okay. Another benefit is my marketing, my messaging for my company is a lot simpler. When somebody lands on my website, they know exactly who it's for, and more importantly, who it's not for. And so if they know exactly who it's not for and who it's for, it's more compelling. Meaning I used to have to try and come up with the most creative marketing. But in reality, if people know that you're a specialist and you only work with a certain type of person, it's more compelling by default. If you owned a business, would you rather hire a marketing company that's worked with 100, companies just like you that have scaled to where you want to be? Or do you want to go with a cookie cutter marketing company who hasn't even worked with a client like you in the past? What would be more valuable? Who would be able to charge more? Right? So that's another thing. Okay. And so I have some notes here that I'm going to kind of read. But bear with me here. I think that this will help a lot of people. And I'll give you a couple more examples. You make more money because of who they are, not because of who you are, right? So the profit that you make comes from, obviously, it costs you something to deliver a result to a person, to a business, and you get to charge a premium on it, right? So let's say you make a business $100,000. If it costs you $5,000, if you charge them an extra 10, so now they pay 15,000 to make 100,000, it's still a good deal for them, right? They don't care how much it costs you as long as it's a good investment for them, and they're going to get an ROI on it, return on investment. So you can increase the price based on the value. Now, the beauty of selling to better customers means you can provide more value for the same work, meaning you can charge more because of who they are, not because of who you are. And so I'll give you an example. If I did the exact same result, which is if I could increase your sales by 10%, if I sold it to $1 million a year company and I increase their sales by 10%, they make an extra $100,000. Cool. Now, if I go to a $10 million business and do the exact same stuff and increase their business by 10%, I added $1 million in sales. Now, if I make you $100,000 versus I make you $1 million, how much more could I charge you for that exact same result? A lot more. And that is the beauty of this. And another benefit is if you're in that example, a $10 million a year business already has a good sales process. They already know how to hire people. They already have a lot of these things built out. So I would make the argument that it's easier to service these customers. Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick example because I have a friend named Zach. He's in the personal training / coaching business. And I was having a conversation because he was having a hard time. He was able to sell some customers, $500 a month coaching. And he was having some people where he had to fight tooth and nail. And I was asking him to explain to me, what's the difference between the two? And it was clear to me and it wasn't clear to him, but I'll tell you what it was. So his problem was he was selling older people, moms with money. And then he was also selling people that were our age in their 20s, working a job, don't have a lot of money saved up. And he was trying to sell them the exact same product and service. And I told him, I said, one, somebody who has money, that's a mom who's 40, 50, she's going to be willing to pay a lot more to get the same result that a teenager would pay, okay? And what he sells is commoditized to some degree, right? It's workout programs, it's accountability, it's checking in, it's training, all that stuff. A young person can go on ChatGPT and get all of that stuff. So the value to them is a lot lower. It is a lot harder for somebody who's older to do that. Now, at the same time, having somebody younger hold you accountable to help you get the result, if I'm older, I'm willing to pay more for that. And so I told him, instead of servicing people that are our age, that can't afford it, that have to pay rent, they live paycheck to paycheck, do not sell those people, because you could deliver them the exact same service, but you're going to have half your customers leaving every single month. So you have to continuously make sales, because as soon as you sell somebody, the next month they cancel. So you got to go make another sale to be where you were last month. And that is a vicious cycle. And I can tell you out of experience, do not do that. The better thing to do is sell the exact same service to a very specific person, AKA moms with money. Now you can make the marketing much more specific. If you're a 45-year-old mom and you're struggling with maintaining your fitness, your faith, you have a bunch of kids, you have all these responsibilities, think of how much more compelling that marketing is than just if you're looking to get fit and have better faith and better religion, etc. It's not as specific. It doesn't feel like it's for them. And therefore you get commoditized, and then it's a race to the bottom, because there's always somebody who will be willing to do the exact same thing you're willing to do for cheaper. So don't do that. And again, so again, for Zach, the solution would be sell to moms who have money, because you can deliver the exact same service and you won't have a bunch of customers who are pissed off that cancel, and you can actually build a sustainable business. And again, it's the exact same service. It's just who you sell to makes all the difference. Okay. And so tactically speaking, the way that you did this, the way that I did this, is you look at your customers, if you have customers, and that's why you have to go through the eat shit phase, is what I call it, where you actually just work with a bunch of people and you find this out for yourself. I'm trying to shortcut it for you as much as possible, but there's no skipping reps. Okay. So you're going to have to sell. I worked with 50, 60 businesses. I worked with politicians, and then I niched down. I didn't niche down first. Okay. So you're going to have to spend some time just figuring it out. That's part of business. So there's no skipping that. But once you have some customers, you'll start to notice some patterns. What customers get the best results? What customers pay the most? What customers are the easiest to sell and service? And you want to know, what are the similarities? Is it their demographics, their age, how much money they make, their gender? You want to know also, you want to know is like, you want to really write down, what is it that these people have in common? And then you want to focus all your marketing on those people and get rid of the rest. And the problem that you will face, that I had to face when I started over, and again, I'm glad I did this, is that you have to sacrifice the short-term money for the long-term money. And nobody wants to do that, and that's why most people stay poor. It is very hard to do. It's very easy to say, but it's very hard to do. It is very simple, but it's still hard in the fact that you have to say no to the people who aren't that type of customer, even if they're willing to pay, because ethically that they will cancel, they will not get the best result, etc. Right? Again, like for me, I would rather work with bigger businesses because they're more established. They know how to handle marketing. If more customers come in, their business doesn't blow up, their operations doesn't blow up. It's not one guy running a business and he starts not able to follow up with the leads because he gets so many leads, he's now busy, and then all of a sudden he's not closing. You want people who have a sales team. You want companies that are established. You want companies that if you get them leads, they're going to do their job. And therefore, they're going to make my life a lot easier. And I've been a guy that's trying to put out fires, and I realized I just can't service these small companies. And it's not always about going to bigger businesses or people with more money, but 9 out of 10 times, that's probably the better thing to do anyway, unless you're strategic and you're like, I'm building my service for this type of person. And there's nothing wrong with servicing small businesses, people that don't have money, but you can't expect to charge them the same way that you would a big business or people that do have money. You actually have to build your business in such a way that it makes sense for them. Low cost, right? It has to be easy, etc. And so just, again, look at the customers that get the best results and then focus on selling to them. It'll make your life easier. And in the long term, you will make way more money. You will have way better quality of life. And overall, your reputation will go up. because people will have great results. And the benefit of working with 100 moms is they will refer you to other moms. If you work with a bunch of college students and moms, your customer mix is going to be really bad. Okay. It's not going to be the best. And when you only work with moms, guess what? You learn all of mom's problems. You learn how you can make your service better for them specifically. AKA, you can charge a higher price because you can get them better results. And it's a virtuous cycle. So, long story short, do not sacrifice the short-term money for the long-term money. It's always better to really figure out who is your customer, niche down. I think Alex Hormozy said this, but it's one product, one customer, or one product, one channel, one avatar. So you sell one thing to one person and you do it through one channel, and that is how you get to $1 million a year. One product, one channel, one avatar. So moms, I'm going to do it through DMing people or cold calling or referrals or paid ads or content. One channel, and one product or service. Once you get to $1 million, then you can worry about getting cute and doing other stuff. But if you haven't made $1 million yet, then I guarantee you that is probably the best option. Anyway, my rant is over. I hope that this was valuable. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. If you're a contractor, check us out at readymedia.solutions, and I will see you on the next video.